The Parthenon looks like shit. I mean, seriously, I'm sorry, but it's missing its roof, its interior, and it's surrounded by rubble. Now, you might be saying, Jerry, don't you think that's a little harsh? It's 2,500 years old. Of course it's going to be in rough shape. But what if I told you that it's not run down because of old age? No, it was actually in pretty good shape all the way up until the late 1600s when it got hit by a cannonball. This isn't millennia of decay. These are scars from when Harvard University already existed. In fact, the Parthenon was only used as the Greek church we know it as for about 700 years, after which it spent 1,000 years as a Christian church, 200 years as a Muslim mosque, and another 200 as a nationalist symbol. And when I learned this, it made me realize that the great monuments of the world don't just teach us about when they were built, they teach us about everything that's happened since. So welcome to the first episode of my new series, Monuments in the Meantime. This episode, the Parthenon. The Parthenon was a temple to the patron goddess of Athens, Athena, for only about 300 years when the Romans conquered Athens in 200 BC. But even once Athens was no longer a political powerhouse, the Romans still saw it as a cultural capital. Roman elites would send their sons to Athens to learn philosophy and math, and emperors would fund repairs on the Acropolis not because they worshipped Athena, but because Greek culture had become a source of prestige for the Roman ruling class. The Acropolis survived 6 centuries of Roman rule because it served a purpose, legitimizing the empire. And in the late 400s, when Rome retreated eastwards, the Acropolis entered its longest phase, the Byzantine era. As the empire Christianized, old pagan temples were abandoned or destroyed, but the Parthenon avoided that fate by being repurposed. It was converted into a Christian church dedicated to the Virgin Mary. The statue of Athena was removed, Christian imagery was added, and windows were cut into the walls, but the building itself was preserved, not because it was ancient, but because it was useful. And even 1,000 years later, the Parthenon was still in good shape as a functioning cathedral. If anything, the Byzantine era was one of stability for the Acropolis. But that finally changed in 1458 when Athens was conquered by the Muslim Ottoman Empire and the Acropolis was once again adapted. The Parthenon was converted into a mosque with a minaret and everything. Ottoman officials lived on the Acropolis and, like the Romans and Byzantines before them, didn't see it as a fossil, they saw it as useful infrastructure for 2 centuries until in 1687 during a war between Venice and the Ottomans when Venetian forces besieged Athens. During the siege, the Ottomans used the central fortified location of the Parthenon to store gunpowder for their cannons until one fateful day a stray Venetian cannonball struck the building, detonating all the gunpowder in an enormous explosion, blowing off the roof, destroying the columns, and shattering everything inside. It was in that one single instant that the Parthenon became the decrepit ruin we know it as today, a victim not of the winds of time, but of early modern warfare. And there it sat for the next 150 years until Greece won its independence in the 1830s and the new Greek state made a deliberate choice to restore the Acropolis not to its Byzantine, Ottoman, or a new functional form, but to an idealized version of classical antiquity. Over 1,000 years of history stripped away to support a story of national rebirth. When you look at the Parthenon today, you're not just seeing a relic of Greek antiquity, you're seeing layers of Roman, Christian, Muslim, and British influence. It's not just telling us where a civilization began, it's telling us who inherited it, who changed it, and who decided which parts are worth remembering. Let me know in the comments down below where you think we should go next.